The wind howled across the frozen surface of Talon 7, carrying ice crystals that sparkled in the pale light of the distant sun. Jiwoo pulled her thermal coat tighter around her body as she walked carefully across the rocky terrain. She had been on this mining moon for 8 months now, and she still wasn't used to the cold. Her boots crunched on the frost-covered ground as she made her way toward the eastern ridge. Jiwoo was a xenobiologist, which meant she studied alien life forms. The mining colony had hired her to make sure their operations didn't harm the local ecosystem. It was a lonely job, but Jiwoo loved it. She had always believed that every living thing deserved respect and protection. The colony behind her looked small from this distance. 200 people lived there, all working to extract valuable isotopes from deep beneath the moon's surface. Most of them thought Jiwoo's job was pointless. There wasn't much life on Talon 7 anyway, just some hardy lichens, a few species of ice-boring worms, and some small creatures that looked like frozen mice. But Jiwoo knew that even small ecosystems mattered. Every planet and moon had its own balance of life. Destroy one part, and the whole system could collapse. She was checking her scanner when she heard it. A sound that didn't belong to the wind or the settling ice. It was a chirping noise, high-pitched and desperate. Jiwoo stopped walking and listened carefully. There it was again, coming from behind a cluster of black rocks ahead. Jiwoo moved toward the sound, her heart beating faster. She climbed over the rocks carefully, using her gloved hands to steady herself. When she reached the top and looked down into the small valley below, she gasped. A creature lay at the bottom, partially buried in fallen rocks and ice. Jiwoo had never seen anything like it. The creature was about the size of a large dog, with 6 legs and a body covered in scales that seemed to be made of crystal. The scales caught the light and reflected it in rainbow colors. On top of its head was a crest of what looked like feathers, but they were stiff and metallic. The creature's scales were glowing with a red light that pulsed irregularly. It was making those chirping sounds, each one weaker than the last. One of its legs was twisted at a terrible angle, clearly broken. Blood that shimmered like liquid silver pooled beneath its body. Jiwoo didn't hesitate. She scrambled down into the valley, sliding on the ice and nearly falling twice. When she reached the creature, she knelt beside it, her knees sinking into the frozen ground. The creature's eyes opened. They were large and dark, like pools of deep space filled with stars. When it saw Jiwoo, it tried to pull away, its good legs scrambling weakly. The red glow of its scales intensified. "Shh, it's okay," Jiwoo said softly. She pulled off one glove and slowly reached out her bare hand. The creature stopped struggling, its eyes locked onto Jiwoo's face. She could see intelligence there. Real understanding. This wasn't just an animal. There was something more. Jiwoo quickly assessed the injuries. The broken leg was bad, but it was the cold that would kill the creature first. Its body temperature was dropping fast. She could see ice forming on its scales. She needed to get it somewhere warm and fast. She tapped her communicator. "This is Jiwoo. I'm bringing in an injured specimen. I need my lab prepared for emergency treatment." The voice of Tae-min, the colony administrator, came through with a crackle of static. "What kind of specimen?" "Unknown species. It's badly hurt. I'm bringing it to my quarters." There was a pause. "Jiwoo, you know the protocols. Unknown xenofauna need to be quarantined in the science bay, not your personal quarters." "It's dying, Taemin. I don't have time to argue. I'm bringing it to my lab." She ended the communication before he could respond. Jiwoo carefully slid her arms under the creature's body. It was heavier than she expected. And when she lifted it, the creature made a sound of pain that broke her heart. I know, she whispered. "Just hold on. We're going to get you help." The walk back to the colony felt like it took forever. Jiwoo's arms burned from the weight, and she had to stop twice to rest. Each time, she made sure to keep the creature close to her body, sharing her warmth. The red glow of its scales gradually began to fade to orange. When she finally reached the colony's main airlock, several people were waiting. Taemin stood, with his arms crossed, his face showing clear disapproval. Next to him was Donghyun, the security chief, and Hae-won, Ji-woo's colleague and one of her few friends on the colony. "Let me help," Hae-won said immediately, moving forward to open the airlock doors. Ji-woo carried the creature through the colony's corridors. People stopped to stare. Some looked curious, others frightened. Ji-woo ignored them all. She reached her quarters in lab space, a small room at the edge of the residential section. Hae-won helped her prepare a space on the examination table, setting up heating lamps and pulling out medical supplies. "What is it?" Hae-won asked, her eyes wide as she looked at the creature's crystalline scales. "I don't know," Ji-woo admitted. She was already working, scanning the creature's vital signs. "But look at these readings. This isn't a simple animal. Its neural structure is incredibly complex." She worked quickly, setting the broken leg and wrapping it in a stabilizing field. She cleaned the wounds and applied synthetic tissue to stop the bleeding. All the while, the creature watched her with those deep, star-filled eyes. The creature's body temperature was still too low. Ji-woo had done everything she could medically, but it wasn't enough. The creature was still shivering, its scales now flickering between orange and red. Without thinking, Ji-woo did something she had never done with an alien creature before. She gently gathered the creature into her arms and held it close to her chest. She wrapped her coat around both of them, creating a warm cocoon. "It's okay," she whispered, rocking slowly. "You're safe now. You're going to be okay." The creature went still for a moment. Then, something remarkable happened. Its scales began to change color, shifting from red to orange to yellow to a calm, steady blue. The shivering stopped. A low humming sound filled the air. So deep, Ji-woo felt it in her bones rather than heard it with her ears. The creature pressed its crystalline head against Ji-woo's chest, right over her heart. The humming grew stronger, and Ji-woo felt a strange warmth spread through her body. It wasn't uncomfortable. It felt like connection, like understanding passing between two very different beings. Hae-won stared in amazement. "Ji-woo, its vital signs are stabilizing. Whatever you're doing, it's working." Ji-woo smiled and continued to hold the creature. She stroked its metallic feathers gently. "You're going to be okay," she repeated. "I've got you." Ji-woo. Behind her, she heard the door open. Taemin's voice was stern. "Ji-woo, we need to talk about this. You've broken several protocols. That creature needs to be properly contained and studied." Ji-woo looked up at him, her arms still wrapped protectively around the creature. The blue glow of its scales reflected in her determined eyes. "This creature isn't a specimen to be contained. It's a living being that was hurt and scared. I did what anyone with compassion would do." Taemin sighed. "You're going to be in trouble for this." "I don't care," Ji-woo said simply. She looked down at the creature in her arms, which had now fallen into what appeared to be a peaceful sleep. Its scales pulsed with a gentle, rhythmic blue light. Sometimes doing the right thing is more important than following rules. She didn't know it then, but that simple act of kindness, that moment of holding and comforting an injured creature, would change everything. Not just for her, not just for the colony, but for humanity's place in the galaxy itself. Outside, in the deep caverns beneath the frozen surface, something stirred. Ancient minds that had been sleeping suddenly awakened. They had felt that pulse of warmth, that connection. They knew one of their young had been found, and they were coming. 3 weeks had passed since Ji-woo brought the creature to her quarters. She had named it Buyul, which meant star in her language. The name seemed perfect for a creature whose scales sparkled like the night sky. Buyul was healing remarkably well. The broken leg was almost completely mended, thanks to the creature's unusual biology. Jiwoo had discovered that Buell's crystalline scales weren't just for protection. They seemed to channel energy throughout its body, speeding up the healing process in ways that fascinated her. But what amazed Jiwoo even more was Buell's intelligence. The creature learned quickly. Within the first week, Buell understood basic commands. When Jiwoo said, "Stay," Buell would sit and wait. When she said, "Come," the creature even learned to recognize different people, showing clear preferences for Jiwoo and Haiwan, while avoiding Taemin and the security personnel. The scales changed color based on Biel's emotions. Blue meant calm and happy. Green meant curious. Yellow meant excited. Red meant scared, or in pain. Jiwoo had started keeping detailed notes on these patterns. She was convinced this was a form of communication. Every night, before Jiwoo went to sleep, Buell would curl up beside her bed. The creature's scales would glow with a soft blue light that filled the room with a gentle radiance. Sometimes Jiwoo would reach down and stroke Buell's metallic feathers, and the creature would make a deep, rumbling sound that seemed like purring. Jiwoo spent every spare moment researching Buell's species. She searched through the colony's database and sent queries to the Central Galactic Archive. Finally, she found something. A brief entry from an exploration team that had visited Talon 15 years ago. The species was called Talrix. The explorers had only seen them from a distance, moving through the deep caverns beneath the moon's surface. The report described them as shy creatures that avoided contact with other species. They lived in family groups deep underground, in places where the geothermal heat kept them warm. The report also noted something important. The Talrix were believed to be semi-sentient, meaning they had intelligence beyond normal animals, but perhaps not quite at the level of fully conscious beings. The explorers had recommended further study, but no one had ever followed up. The mining company found the isotopes instead, and everyone forgot about the Talrix. Jiwoo read the report 3 times. Semi-sentient. She looked at Buell, who was at that moment carefully arranging its bedding materials into a neat circle. The creature noticed Jiwoo watching and chirped, its scales turning bright green. Buell picked up a datapad that had fallen on the floor and brought it to Jiwoo, placing it carefully in her hand. Semi-sentient? Jiwoo muttered to herself. I don't think so. You're fully aware, aren't you, Bile? The creature tilted its head, and Jiwoo could have sworn it nodded. That evening, Haewon came to visit. She brought food from the colony cafeteria and sat on the floor next to Buell, who immediately nuzzled against her leg. Bile really likes you, Jiwoo said, smiling. The feeling is mutual, Haewon replied, scratching behind Buell's feather crest. Have you thought about what you're going to do? Taemin is still pressuring you to release Buell outside the colony. Jiwoo's smile faded. I know, but I've been researching. Bile is a juvenile. It got separated from its family somehow. There was a seismic event about a month ago, remember? The ground shook for almost an hour. I think that's when Buell got lost. So Bile has a family out there? A convergence, Jiwoo corrected. That's what the Talrix call their family groups. They can be hundreds of individuals, living together in the deep caverns. Haewon looked concerned. And they're probably looking for Buell. Maybe. Or maybe they think Bile is dead. Jiwoo's voice was sad. I've been thinking about it constantly. What's the right thing to do? Keep Bile here where it's safe and cared for, or help it find its family? Before Haewon could answer, the room shook. Not violently, but enough to make both women grab onto the furniture for support. Bile's scales flashed red, and the creature made a high-pitched sound Jiwoo had never heard before. The shaking stopped after a few seconds. Jiwoo's communicator beeped. It was Donghyun, the security chief. Jiwoo, are you monitoring the seismic sensors? No. What's happening? We're picking up unusual movements in the deep cavern systems. Not earthquakes, exactly. More like something large, moving through the tunnels. Actually, multiple, large somethings. Ji-woo's heart began to race. She looked at Bile, who was now standing rigid, staring at the wall, as if seeing through it to something far below. The creature's scales were cycling through colors rapidly. Blue, green, yellow, orange, red, then back to blue. How deep? Ji-woo asked. About 2 kilometers down. The readings are strange. Whatever is moving down there is causing vibrations in a pattern, almost like they're rhythmic. Why heaven tin? Why heaven to why? Like communication. Ji-woo whispered. What? Nothing. Thank you, Donghyun. Keep me updated. She ended the call and knelt beside Bile. The creature turned to look at her, and in those deep, star-filled eyes, Ji-woo saw something that made her breath catch. Longing. Hope. Fear. Your family, she said softly. They're looking for you, aren't they? Bile pressed its head against Ji-woo's hand. The scales glowed blue, then shifted through a complex pattern of colors Ji-woo couldn't interpret. But the meaning was clear enough. Bile wanted to go home. Ji-woo made her decision. She stood up and looked at Haewon. I need to take Buell into the caverns. I need to help it find its convergence. That's dangerous, Haewon said immediately. Those caverns are unstable. There are toxic gas pockets, ice collapses, predators, and we have no idea how the adult Talrics will react to seeing humans with their young. I know the risks, but it's the right thing to do. Bile saved my research when I found it. Now I need to save Bile by reuniting it with its family. Haewon was quiet for a moment. Then she stood up and brushed off her pants. Okay. But you're not going alone. I'm coming with you. Haewon. You don't have to. I know I don't have to. I want to. Besides, someone needs to keep you from doing something completely foolish. She smiled. I'll talk to Young Soo. He's a good mechanic and knows cave systems. We'll need someone who can handle the technical equipment. Over the next few days, Ji-woo prepared for the expedition. She studied maps of the cavern systems, gathered supplies, and monitored the seismic readings. The patterns continued, growing stronger. Whatever was moving down there was getting more active. Taemin called her to his office. I heard about your plan, he said, not looking pleased. This is foolish and dangerous. It's necessary, Ji-woo replied calmly. Buell needs to be with its own kind. That creature has become too important to you. You're making emotional decisions instead of logical ones. Ji-woo met his eyes steadily. Sometimes the emotional decision is the logical one. Keeping Bile here would be cruel. Taking it outside the colony and just releasing it would be deadly. The only real option is to help it get home. Taemin sighed heavily. If you die down there, it's not my fault. Noted. The night before the expedition, Ji-woo sat with Bile in her quarters. She had already packed her equipment, checked her gear 3 times, and gone over the maps until she had them memorized. Now there was nothing to do but wait for morning. She pulled Buell close, wrapping her arms around the creature's warm body. The scales glowed, soft blue, and that deep humming sound filled the room. I'm going to miss you, Ji-woo whispered. You've been good company. But you belong with your family. Everyone deserves to be with their family. Bile made a gentle chirping sound and nuzzled closer. For a long moment, they sat together in the blue glow, human and alien, sharing a connection that needed no words. Ji-woo felt that strange warmth again, spreading from where Buell pressed against her. Images flickered through her mind. Not quite thoughts, but something close. She saw dark caverns lit by bioluminescence. She saw dozens of creatures like Bile, moving together in harmony. She saw something massive and ancient, something that watched over all the others. When the images faded, Ji-woo realized she was crying. Not from sadness, but from the beauty of what she had seen. Bile's home. Bile's family. I'll get you there, she promised. No matter what it takes, tomorrow they would descend into the unknown. Tomorrow, They would face dangers that Ji-woo could only imagine. But tonight, she held tight to the creature she had saved, and wondered if perhaps Bile had saved her too. The entrance to the cavern system was a jagged crack in the ice, barely wide enough for a person to squeeze through. Ji-woo stood at the edge, looking down into the darkness below. Her breath formed clouds in the freezing air. "Are you sure about this?" Young-soo asked. He was checking the climbing equipment for the third time, his nervous habits showing. "No," Ji-woo admitted honestly. "But we're doing it anyway." Hae-won adjusted the heavy pack on her back. Inside were medical supplies, food rations for 3 days, and emergency equipment. Bile seems excited at least. The creature was indeed showing signs of excitement. Its scales were bright yellow, almost gold, and it kept chirping and moving toward the cavern entrance. Bile's head tilted down, listening to something the humans couldn't hear. "It can sense them," Ji-woo said. "The other Talrics, they must be calling to each other somehow." Young-soo attached the safety lines to their harnesses. "Then, let's not keep them waiting. The sooner we get down there, the sooner we can get back to safety." They descended one at a time. Ji-woo went first, with Bile in a special carrier strapped to her chest. The creature was small enough that it didn't add too much weight, and Ji-woo wanted to keep it close. The climb down was treacherous. The ice was slippery, and several times Ji-woo's boots lost their grip. Only the safety line kept her from falling. After 20 minutes of careful climbing, they reached the bottom of the first shaft. They were now in a tunnel, carved through solid rock and ice. The walls glowed faintly with some kind of phosphorescent fungus, giving just enough light to see by. "This way," Ji-woo said, checking her scanner. The device was picking up heat signatures deeper in the tunnel system. According to her maps, there was a main passage about half a kilometer ahead. They walked in single file, their footsteps echoing in the silence. The air was warmer here than on the surface, heated by geothermal vents deep below. Steam rose from cracks in the floor, creating an eerie mist that swirled around their legs. Bile chirped loudly, and the sound echoed down the tunnel. Somewhere in the distance, something chirped back. Everyone froze. "Did you hear that?" Hae-won whispered. "Yes," Ji-woo replied, her heart pounding. "We're close." They continued forward more cautiously now. Young-soo kept one hand on the tool at his belt, though Ji-woo didn't think a simple cutting torch would help if they encountered danger. Hae-won had her medical scanner out, monitoring for toxic gases. The tunnel opened into a vast chamber that took Ji-woo's breath away. The ceiling soared high above them, covered in crystal formations that caught and reflected light. The walls were smooth, carved not by nature but by intelligent hands. Ji-woo approached the nearest wall, running her gloved fingers over the carved symbols. They were mathematical formulas, incredibly complex ones. Next to them were star charts showing constellations Ji-woo recognized and many she didn't. "This is impossible," Young-soo breathed. "The report said the Talrics were only semi-sentient. But this is advanced civilization." Ji-woo felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cold. The report was wrong. Very wrong. Bile jumped down from the carrier and ran across the chamber floor. The creature stopped at a section of wall covered in colorful murals. The artwork showed the history of the Talrics. Ji-woo could see images of their species among the stars, traveling between worlds. Then, something changed. The murals showed ships attacking, Talrics fleeing. The images grew darker, showing the species retreating underground, hiding from those who hunted them. "They're refugees," Hae-won said softly, studying the murals. "They came here to hide from something." A deep vibration ran through the floor. Not violent, but powerful. Bile's scales flashed through a rapid sequence of colors, and the creature began making excited chirping sounds. "They're coming," Ji-woo said. She could feel it somehow. A presence approaching from deeper in the cavern system. "Should we run?" Young-soo asked, his voice rising with worry. "No. We came here to reunite Bile with its family," That's what we're going to do. They didn't have to wait long. From the tunnel on the far side of the chamber, shapes began to emerge from the darkness. Large shapes. The adult Talrics were magnificent and terrifying. They were 3 times the size of Bile, with scales that looked like they were carved from pure diamond. Their feather crests were longer, more elaborate, and their eyes. Their eyes held an intelligence that was unmistakable and profound. There were 5 of them. They moved into the chamber with a grace that seemed impossible for creatures so large. Their scales glowed with different colors, creating a light show that illuminated the entire space. Bile ran forward, chirping frantically. One of the adults, the largest one, lowered its head and touched its forehead to Bile's. Light pulsed between them, blue and gold and green. The other adults gathered around, examining Bile carefully. Jiwoo watched as they inspected the healed leg, running their crystalline claws gently over the medical work she had done. One of them looked up at her. Their eyes met, and Jiwoo felt a shock run through her entire body. The adult Talrics began moving toward her. Jiwoo's companions stepped back nervously, but she held her ground. She didn't know why, but she felt no fear. Only curiosity and hope. The Talrics stopped directly in front of her. It was so close that Jiwoo could see her own reflection in its diamond scales. The creature's breathing was slow and steady. Its scales cycled through colors, red to yellow to blue. Then it lowered its massive head and touched its forehead to hers. The world exploded into light and sensation. Images flooded Jiwoo's mind. She saw the Talric civilization at its height, spread across dozens of worlds. She saw beautiful cities carved into living crystal, technology that blended seamlessly with biology. She saw a people who valued knowledge, art, and harmony above all else. Then she saw the hunters, other species, cruel and greedy, who saw the Talrics as a resource to be exploited. Their crystalline scales could be harvested and sold for enormous profit. Their bodies could be processed into valuable materials. The hunters didn't see people. They saw a product. The images showed the Talrics fleeing, hiding, dying. So many dying. Until finally, a small group found this frozen moon. They went deep underground, where the hunters wouldn't think to look. They gave up their cities and their technology. They became simple again, living quietly in the dark, hoping to survive. For 50,000 years, they had hidden here, remembering what they lost, protecting what little they had left. The images shifted. Jiwoo saw Bile injured and lost, separated from the convergence during an earthquake. She felt the family's grief, thinking their young was dead. Then she saw herself, through Talric's eyes. She saw the moment she found Bile, the moment she chose to help rather than harm. She felt the family's cautious hope when they sensed Bile was alive and healing, and she felt something else. A question. A test. Would the humans be like the hunters of old? Or would they be different? The connection broke. Jiwoo staggered backward, and Hae-won caught her before she could fall. Jiwoo, what happened? Are you okay? I'm fine, Jiwoo said, though her head was spinning. She looked at the large Talrics, who was watching her with those deep, knowing eyes. You're the matriarch, aren't you? The leader of the convergence. The matriarch's scales pulsed blue. An affirmative. Jiwoo steadied herself and stepped forward again. She needed to communicate, to make the matriarch understand. She placed her hand over her heart and then extended it toward Bile, who was watching from beside the other adults. I helped your child, she said clearly, knowing somehow that the matriarch could understand her intent, if not her words. I helped because it was hurt, because it needed help. That's all. I want nothing in return. I just wanted to bring Bile home. She felt another touch in her mind, lighter this time. The matriarch was probing gently, reading her intentions. Jiwoo opened her thoughts. showing her memories of caring for Buell, the late nights monitoring its healing, the joy she felt when Bile took its first steps on the mended leg, the sadness at knowing she would have to say goodbye. The matriarch's scales shifted through a complex pattern. Then she made a deep, resonant sound. The other adult Talrics responded, their voices joining in harmony. The sound filled the chamber, beautiful and haunting. Bile ran to Jiwoo and pressed against her leg. She knelt and wrapped her arms around the creature one last time, feeling tears on her face. "Be happy," she whispered. "Be safe with your family." Bile's scales glowed bright blue. The creature made a soft sound and nuzzled into her embrace. Then, it pulled back and returned to the matriarch's side. The matriarch touched her head to Jiwoo's one more time. This time, there were no images. Just a feeling of gratitude and respect. And something else. A promise. Then the Talrics turned and began walking back into the deeper tunnels. Bile looked back once, its scales flashing through every color in sequence. Then, it too disappeared into the darkness. The chamber felt empty without them. Jiwoo stood in silence, her heart aching with joy and loss. "We should go," Youngsu said quietly. Before, the ground shook. Not gently this time, but violently. The entire chamber trembled, and dust fell from the ceiling. "That's not natural," Haewon shouted over the noise. Jiwoo checked her scanner and felt her blood run cold. The readings were coming from the surface. From the colony, someone was using seismic charges. Someone was mining near the Talrics caverns. "We need to get back," Jiwoo said, already running toward the exit tunnel. The climb back to the surface was desperate and dangerous. Every few minutes, another explosion would shake the ice around them. Chunks of rock fell from the cavern walls. Once, a piece of ice the size of Jiwoo's head missed her by centimeters. When they finally emerged from the cavern entrance, the scene that greeted them made Jiwoo's stomach turn. The colony had changed. There were new ships on the landing pad. Sleek corporate vessels with the logo of Hanjin Mining Corporation emblazoned on their sides. Around the colony perimeter, armed men and women in tactical gear stood watch. They weren't the usual security personnel. These were mercenaries. "What happened while we were down there?" Haewon asked, breathing hard from the climb. "Nothing good," Youngsu replied grimly. They hurried toward the colony entrance. One of the mercenaries tried to stop them, but Jiwoo pushed past with an authority she didn't feel. Her mind was racing. Who authorized this? Why were they setting off charges near the Talrics caverns? She found her answer in the colony's main meeting hall. Tae-min was there, along with Dong-hyun and most of the other colonists. But dominating the room was a man Jiwoo had never seen before. He was in his 50s, wearing an expensive suit that looked ridiculous on a mining moon. His hair was perfectly styled, and his smile was the kind that never reached his eyes. "Ah, our heroic xenobiologist returns," the man said. His voice was smooth and false. "I'm Sang-wook, Executive Director of Hanjin Mining Corporation. I've been hearing fascinating stories about you and your pet alien." Jiwoo ignored the condescension in his tone. "What are you doing here? And why are you detonating charges near the deep caverns?" Sang-wook's smile widened. "Straight to the point. I appreciate that. I'm here because your discovery of an indigenous species has created an opportunity. You see, the cavern systems you explored contain the richest deposits of isotopes we've ever found on this moon. We're talking about trillions in value." "You can't mine there," Jiwoo said firmly. "There's an intelligent species living in those caverns. They're protected under galactic preservation laws." Sang-wook laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. "Intelligence? You saw some cave paintings and had a nice moment with an animal. That doesn't constitute proof of sapience. Our legal team has reviewed your reports. They found them inconclusive." "That's a lie." "I made direct mental contact with the Talrics matriarch. I saw their history, their civilization. You experienced what you believe was mental contact, Sang-wook interrupted. Our medical team suggests you may have been exposed to hallucinogenic gases in the caverns. It's quite common. Nothing to be ashamed of. Ji-woo felt her hands clenching into fists. You're twisting the facts. You know exactly what's down there, and you don't care. I care about providing energy resources to billions of people across the galaxy. I care about the jobs of everyone in this colony. And I care about following the law. He pulled up a holographic display. We have permits. We have authorization. And we have the equipment to begin full-scale mining operations within 48 hours. Ji-woo turned to Tae-min. You can't allow this. The colony administrator looked uncomfortable. The director has all the proper documentation. My hands are tied. The corporation owns this colony, Ji-woo. What they say goes. Even if it means destroying an entire civilization? There's no proof of civilization, Sang-wook said smoothly. Just your unsupported claims. Now, I'm a reasonable man. I'm willing to delay operations for 1 week while you gather concrete evidence. But if you can't provide scientific proof that meets corporate and legal standards, we proceed with mining. 1 week isn't enough time. Then I suggest you work quickly. Ji-woo looked around the room. Most of the colonists wouldn't meet her eyes. They knew this was wrong. But they also knew their jobs depended on the corporation. Only Haewon and a few others looked angry enough to do something about it. She left the meeting hall and went straight to her quarters. She needed to review all her data, organize her evidence, and find a way to prove what she knew to be true. But when she accessed her files, her heart sank. Someone had been in her system. Half of her research on the Talrics was corrupted. Her scans of the cavern murals were deleted. Even her medical records of Buell had been tampered with. They're destroying the evidence, Haewon said from the doorway. She had followed Ji-woo. They'll never let you prove anything. Then what do we do? Haewon closed the door and spoke quietly. There are about 80 colonists who think this is wrong. We've been talking. We're willing to make a stand. A stand against armed mercenaries? A peaceful stand. We block the cavern entrance. Create a human shield. They won't risk bad publicity by hurting unarmed civilians. Ji-woo wanted to believe that, but she had seen the coldness in Sang-wook's eyes. He'll find a way around us. Maybe. But we have to try. The next morning, Ji-woo led 83 colonists to the main cavern entrance. They carried signs and banners with messages like, "Protect intelligent life," and "No mining in sacred spaces." They formed a line across the entrance, linking arms. Sang-wook arrived an hour later with his mercenaries. He looked annoyed rather than concerned. "This is your protest?" he said to Ji-woo. "How quaint. I'll give you 1 hour to disperse. After that, my security team will remove you." "We're not moving," Ji-woo said. Behind her, the other colonists echoed. "Not moving," Sang-wook shrugged. "Your choice." The hour passed in tense silence. Then the mercenaries moved forward. They carried riot shields and shock batons. They weren't lethal weapons, but they would hurt. "Last chance," the lead mercenary said. "We're not moving," Ji-woo repeated. The mercenaries advanced. Ji-woo braced herself, ready for the pain of being dragged away. But she wouldn't fight. Violence would only give Sang-wook an excuse. Then Dong-hyun stepped forward. The security chief had been watching from the side, and Ji-woo had assumed he was with the corporation. But now, he walked past the mercenaries and stood with the protesters. "You'll have to go through me too," he said. Several of his security team followed. Not all of them, but enough. The line of protesters grew stronger. Sang-wook's face reddened. "This is mutiny. This is conscience," Dong-hyun replied calmly. For a moment, it seemed like Sang-wook might back down, but then his expression hardened. "Fine. If you won't move, we'll go around you." He pulled up his communicator and gave an order. "Activate the drilling platform at Site 7. Begin operations Immediately, Jiwoo felt sick. Site 7 was on the other side of the mountain, but it accessed the same cavern system. While they blocked one entrance, Sang-wook would simply use another. It's over. The ground began to shake. Not from mining equipment, but from something else. Something deep below. The vibration grew stronger, rhythmic, and purposeful. The mercenaries looked nervous. Even Sang-wook lost some of his confidence. "What is that?" someone asked. Jiwoo knew. She had felt this vibration before, in the cavern when the Talriks communicated. But this was different. This wasn't communication. This was a warning. The shaking grew more intense. Cracks appeared in the ice around the cavern entrance. Then, with a sound like thunder, the ground split open. Not just at the entrance, but all around the colony. Dozens of new openings appeared in the frozen earth. And from each opening, Talriks began to emerge. Not just 5 or 10. Hundreds of them. They came from every direction, surrounding the colony completely. Their crystalline scales caught the pale sunlight, creating a display of color and light that was almost blinding. The mercenaries fell back, dropping their weapons. Several of them ran. Others simply stood frozen, in fear and awe. At the front of the convergence was the matriarch. She was even more impressive in full daylight, towering over the humans. Beside her was Bile, small, but standing proud. The matriarch's scales began to glow in a complex pattern. The other Talriks responded, their own scales lighting up in perfect synchronization. Together, they created images in the air, made of pure light. Mathematical formulas appeared first, so advanced that even Young-soo gasped in recognition. Then star charts showing voyages across the galaxy. Then images of the Talrik civilization at its height, leaving no doubt about their intelligence and capabilities. Holographic projection. Young-soo breathed. Through biological means. I didn't think that was possible. The images continued, showing the persecution the Talriks had faced. Their long exile. Their 50,000 years of hiding on this frozen moon. Then the images changed. They showed the humans arriving, mining, disrupting the delicate balance of the ecosystem. And finally, they showed the present moment. The drilling, the explosions, the threat to their home. When the light show ended, everyone stood in stunned silence. There was no doubt now. The Talriks were fully sapient. More than that, they possessed technology beyond human understanding. Sang-wook was pale. This changes nothing. They're still on our claimed territory. The matriarch turned her massive head toward him. Her scales shifted to red. A deep, resonant sound came from her throat, and every other Talriks echoed it. The sound was so deep and powerful that it vibrated in Jiwoo's chest. Then something extraordinary happened. The ground beneath the mining equipment began to tremble. The crystalline formations in the surrounding rocks started to glow. A field of energy spread across the area, and every piece of electronic equipment shut down instantly. The mercenaries' weapons went dead. Their communicators stopped working. Even the ships on the landing pad powered down. The Talriks weren't just intelligent. They were powerful. Sang-wook stumbled backward. For the first time, real fear showed on his face. Wait. We can discuss this. Negotiate. The matriarch moved forward until she stood directly in front of Jiwoo. She lowered her head, and once again, their minds touched. The mental connection was clearer this time. Jiwoo felt the matriarch's thoughts like words spoken directly into her mind. A choice for your kind. Leave this moon forever and never return. Or stay, stop the destruction, and live as neighbors in peace. Jiwoo felt the weight of that choice pressing down on her. The matriarch wasn't asking her personally. She was asking her to speak for humanity. But Jiwoo was just one person, a scientist with no authority. As if sensing her doubt, The matriarch sent another thought. You showed kindness when you could have shown cruelty. You gave help when you could have taken advantage. You are the one we choose to speak for your kind. The connection broke. Jiwoo staggered slightly, then steadied herself. She turned to face the colonists, the mercenaries, and Sang-wook. Everyone was watching her. The Talriks are offering us a choice, Jiwoo said, her voice carrying across the frozen ground. We can leave this moon and never come back. Or we can stay, but only if we promise to stop mining in their territory and live peacefully alongside them. They can't make demands. Sang-wook protested, though his voice shook. This is human territory. We have legal claims. Your legal claims mean nothing, Donghyun interrupted. Galactic law is clear. When a sapient species is discovered on a world, all previous claims are void. The planet, or moon, belongs to the indigenous people. Sang-wook's face twisted with anger. You're all throwing away trillions in resources. This is insanity. This is survival, Jiwoo corrected. You saw what the Talriks can do. They shut down all our technology with a thought. They could collapse this entire colony into the ice, if they wanted to. But they're not. They're offering peace. She walked closer to Sang-wook, making sure he could see the determination in her eyes. You need to understand something. The Talriks have been hunted before. They've been persecuted and nearly destroyed. They're not going to let that happen again. If you push them, if you try to take their home, they will defend themselves, and we'll lose. She's right, Young-soo added. Their technology is centuries ahead of ours. Maybe more. Fighting them would be suicide. Sang-wook looked around at his mercenaries, but none of them would meet his eyes. They had dropped their weapons and wanted no part of a conflict with the Talriks. This isn't over, Sang-wook hissed. Corporate headquarters will hear about this. The Galactic Council will review the case. Let them, Jiwoo said calmly. I have all the proof we need now. Hundreds of witnesses saw the Talriks demonstrate their intelligence and technology. No legal team can dispute that. Sang-wook's shoulders slumped. He had lost, and he knew it. Fine. We'll leave. But don't expect the corporation to maintain this colony. You're all on your own. We'll manage, Taemin said. The colony administrator stepped forward to stand with Jiwoo. I was wrong to go along with this. We should have listened from the beginning. Over the next few hours, preparations began for the corporation's departure. Sang-wook and his mercenaries boarded their ships, taking their drilling equipment with them. Many colonists chose to leave too, unwilling to stay on a moon without corporate support, but 83 colonists remained. The same 83 who had stood at the cavern entrance. They believed in what Jiwoo was trying to do. They wanted to stay and build something new. As the last corporate ship lifted off into the pale sky, Jiwoo felt a mix of relief and uncertainty. They had won, but now they faced the challenge of rebuilding their entire way of life. The matriarch approached with Buell and several other adult Talriks. Once again, she touched her head to Jiwoo's. This time, the images she shared were different. Jiwoo saw technology for generating clean energy from the moon's geothermal vents. Methods for growing food in the harsh environment. Medical techniques that could heal injuries in days instead of weeks. The Talriks were offering to share their knowledge, but there was something else in the matriarch's mind. A question. Why did you help the small one? Jiwoo thought about her answer carefully. Because it needed help. Because it was hurt and alone. Because I believe all living things deserve kindness and compassion. Isn't that reason enough? She felt something like approval from the matriarch. Your kind is strange, violent and destructive, but also capable of great compassion. We will watch and see which nature wins. I hope we don't disappoint you, Jiwoo thought back. The matriarch pulled away. Her scales shifted through a complex pattern, and the other Talriks responded. Together, they created another light display. This one showed the future. Humans and Talriks working together, sharing knowledge, building something new. It wasn't a promise exactly, more like a possibility, a path they could walk together if both sides chose to. Bile stepped forward and pressed against Jiwoo's leg, just like it had done so many times in her quarters. She knelt and wrapped her arms around the creature, feeling that deep, rumbling purr. "Thank you for trusting me," she whispered. "Thank you for giving us a chance." Bile's scales glowed bright blue. The creature chirped happily, then ran back to the matriarch's side. The convergence turned and began walking back toward the cavern entrances. They moved with grace and purpose, disappearing one by one into the darkness below. But they didn't seal the entrances. That was significant. They were leaving the paths open, an invitation to visit, to communicate, to build trust. Haewon came to stand beside Jiwoo. "What do we do now?" Jiwoo smiled. "Now we figure out how to live on this moon without destroying it. We learn from the Talrics. We prove that humans can be good neighbors. That's a big responsibility, I know. But I think we can do it." The weeks that followed were difficult but hopeful. The colonists who remained transformed their settlement. Instead of mining for isotopes, they focused on sustainable living. The Talrics shared their geothermal technology, and soon the colony had more than enough energy for their needs. Trade agreements were established. The Talrics had spent 50,000 years studying this moon. They knew which surface areas were safe to mine without damaging the ecosystem. In exchange for access to these resources, the humans shared their own knowledge and technology. Jiwoo became the official ambassador between the two species. She spent half her time in the colony and half in the caverns below, learning the Talrics' language and customs. It was slow work, but progress was made each day. Bile visited her often. The young Talrics had become something of a celebrity, known to both species as the one who started it all. Bile didn't seem to mind the attention, as long as Jiwoo still gave regular hugs. 3 months after the confrontation, the Galactic Council officially recognized the Talrics as a sapient species with full rights. Talon 7 was declared a protected world under joint human-Talrics governance. Sang-wook and the corporation tried to contest the decision, but they had no case. The evidence was overwhelming. More surprisingly, other colonies started reaching out. They wanted to know how the human-Talrics alliance worked. Some had their own stories of indigenous species that had been overlooked or dismissed. Jiwoo's example inspired them to look again, to seek cooperation instead of exploitation. Jiwoo stood at the edge of the cavern entrance one evening, watching the sun set over the frozen landscape. Behind her, she heard the sound of footsteps, not human footsteps, but the distinctive click of crystalline claws on ice. Bile emerged from the cavern and came to sit beside her. The creature had grown in the past months, though it was still smaller than the adults. Its scales glowed with the soft blue light that Jiwoo had come to associate with contentment. "Hey there," Jiwoo said, scratching behind Bile's feather crest. "Out for an evening walk?" Bile chirped and pressed its head against her hand. They sat together in comfortable silence, watching the stars begin to appear in the darkening sky. Haewon joined them, carrying 2 cups of hot tea. She handed one to Jiwoo and sat on her other side. "I was thinking about something," she said. "What's that?" "People back on Earth are calling you a hero. They say you saved an entire civilization." Jiwoo shook her head. "I just helped an injured creature. That's all. Anyone with compassion would have done the same. Maybe. But not everyone would have kept fighting for what was right. Not everyone would have stood up to a powerful corporation. You did that. We all did that. Everyone who stood at that entrance. Everyone who chose to stay." Haewon smiled. "True. But you started it. You showed us what was possible." Bile made a soft sound and nuzzled against both of them, as if agreeing. Jiwoo looked out at the colony, at the lights glowing warm against the cold darkness. She thought about everything that had happened. Finding Bile injured and afraid. Making the choice to help. The journey into the caverns. the confrontation with Sang-wook, the moment when the convergence emerged. It all started with a hug. One simple act of kindness in a cold, uncaring universe. You know what they're saying on the galactic news channels? Haewon asked. They're calling humans the compassionate species. They say we'll hug anything that moves. Jiwoo laughed. Is that supposed to be an insult or a compliment? I think it's both. But mostly a compliment. There are plenty of species out there who are strong, or smart, or advanced. But apparently, we're the ones who lead with compassion. That's pretty special. Maybe that's our real strength, Jiwoo said thoughtfully. Bile chirped loudly. And from deep within the caverns, other Talriks responded. The sound echoed across the frozen landscape. Beautiful and haunting. It was a song of gratitude, of friendship, of hope for the future. Jiwoo raised her cup of tea. Haewon clinked her cup against Jiwoo's. Buell's scales glowed brighter, cycling through every color in a joyful display. The creature stood and started walking toward the cavern entrance, then looked back at the two humans. An invitation. Jiwoo and Haewon stood, following Buell into the warm glow of the underground world. Behind them, the stars shone cold and distant. But ahead, in the caverns below, a warm light waited. The light of civilization, of friendship, of two species learning to live together. All because one human stopped to help an injured creature. All because she chose compassion over convenience. All because she gave a hug when it was needed most. In the years that followed, the Human-Talriks alliance became the foundation for a new era of galactic cooperation. Other species looked to them as an example of what was possible when different peoples chose understanding over fear. The Talriks slowly began to share more of their ancient knowledge. They taught humans about the civilizations that had come before, about the cycles of the galaxy, about the importance of preserving life in all its forms. And at the center of it all was Jiwoo, the woman who hugged an injured hatchling and changed the course of history. She never sought fame or recognition. She just wanted to do what was right. But her example spread across the stars, inspiring others to choose compassion, to seek connection, to remember that every life has value. 20 years later, when Jiwoo was asked to address the Galactic Council, she kept her speech simple. I didn't do anything special, she told the assembled representatives of 100 worlds. I just helped someone who needed help. That's all any of us should do. See someone in pain, offer comfort. See someone in danger, offer protection. See someone different, offer friendship. She paused, looking out at the diverse crowd. Beings of every shape and size, from worlds across the galaxy. We're all just trying to survive in this vast universe. Maybe the best way to do that is to help each other. Maybe the best way to thrive is to care for each other. Maybe kindness really is the most powerful force in existence. The council chamber erupted in applause and sounds of agreement from hundreds of different species. But Jiwoo's eyes found the Talriks delegation, where an adult Buell sat with the matriarch. The creature's scales glowed brilliant blue. After the speech, Bile came to her as always, pressing that familiar head against her hand, and Jiwoo did what she had done that very first day. She wrapped her arms around her friend and held tight, sharing warmth in a cold universe. One hug at a time, they were making the galaxy a better place. And it all started because she chose to care.